Good day, all. Today we are going to learn the next poem of your first flight. Poem number 10, The Tale of Custard the Dragon by Ogden Nash. The theme of the poem is Do not judge a book by its cover. This is a comical poem written by Ogden Nash in the form of a ballad. Ballad is a kind of a storytelling in a poem format. To know about the poet, Frederick Ogden Nash was born in 1902. He lived till 1971. He was an American poet, famous for his light verse, known as the producer of humorous poetry, and received Sarah Josepha Hale Award in 1964. The poem. Stanza 1. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse, and a little yellow dog, and a little red wagon, and a realio trulio little pet dragon. The poet says that Belinda, a little girl, lived in a white little house with her 4 pets named Ink, Blink, Mustard, and Custard. A black kitten, a little grey mouse, a little yellow dog, and a little dragon. She also owned a red wagon. So in this poem and in these lines, we have certain literary devices. The rhyme scheme is AABB, which is house, mouse, wagon, dragon. The poetic device repetition is used, which is the use of the word little again and again. Oxymoron, which means opposite meanings. 2 words with opposite meanings. Pet dragon. A pet, that to a dragon. Anaphora. Repeated use of word at the start of 2 consecutive lines. Anaphora. Repeated use of word, as I said, the start of the 2 consecutive lines. Under little, under realio, and an and. A refrain, which means repetition of a sentence again and again. That is, and a realio, trulio, if you see in the poem, it comes again and again. Poetic license is that where spellings have been changed just to create a musical effect. For example, realio and trulio is used for real and true. You can find such poetic devices and license in many of the poems where the poet changes as he likes. Stanza 2. Now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and the little grey mouse she called him Blink. And the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard, but the dragon was a coward and she called him Custard. So here, in the above lines, the poet introduces each pet of Belinda. The little black kitten was named Ink, the little grey mouse was named Blink, the yellow dog was named Mustard, and the dragon was called Custard because they think he was a coward. So how comic it is, a dragon being coward. Now if you see the rhyme schemes in this, you have the same AABB, which is ink and blink, mustard and custard. Simile, where a dog is compared to a mustard and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard. Alliteration, the C sound of coward and custard. Anaphora, repeated use of word at the start of 2 consecutive lines, which is little grey and the little yellow. Repetition, use of word little. Stanza 3. Custard the dragon had big sharp teeth and spikes on top of him and scales underneath. Mouth like a fireplace chimney for a nose, and realio trulio daggers on his toes. So the poet again brings some comic sense out here where he says, the dragon Custard, yes, had a big sharp teeth, spikes on his skin, his lower part had scales, his mouth was a fireplace where it emits fire, and his nose was like a chimney where it used to emit the smoke. He had daggers on his toes, but still he was called a coward. So you have to understand the irony out here. The rhyme scheme again goes AABB. Simile, as you know, the use of like and as out here. The dragon's mouth is compared with fireplace, mouth like a fireplace. A refrain, as I told, a sentence which is repeated again and again, realio and trulio. Metaphor, chimney for a nose, a literal meaning where you compare the nose with a chimney. A nose can never be like a chimney, right? So that is why it is a metaphor. So we have to understand what is a metaphor. Metaphor is where you try to compare two different things with the same meaning. Stanza 4. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chased lions down the stairs. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard cried for a nice safe cage. So again here the poet says that Belinda was very brave, like a barrel full of bears. She had so much of strength. Ink and Blink, a kitten and a rat, used to chase lions down the stairs. And like an angry tiger, Mustard was very brave. Whereas a poor Custard dragon, it always cried for a nice safe cage because he was a coward. If you see the rhyme scheme again, it is AA, BB. Bear, stairs, rage and cage. Alliterations, the B sound, repeated. Simile, Belinda's bravery out here is compared with full of bears. Mustard's bravery is compared to that of an angry tiger, like an ass is again used. Assonance, it is the sound of a vowel, A. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears. Now, we shall move to the next stanza. Stanza number 5. Belinda tickled him, she tickled him unmerciful. Ink, Blink and Mustard, they rudely called him Percival. They all sat laughing in the little red wagon at the realio trulio cowardly dragon. So in the above lines again, the poet says that Belinda would tickle Custard so ruthlessly, and it was a fun time for the other animals there. They called Custard a Percival. He was a knight who ran away from the battlefield. In the little red wagon, they all sat laughing at the poor Custard. Now moving to the rhyme scheme, we have the same rhyme scheme all through the poem. AA, BB, unmerciful, Percival, wagon, dragon. As I told you, repetition of a sentence again and again in a poem, it's called as a refrain. Over here, it is under realio, trulio. And repetition is use of a word again and again, which has tickled him in this particular stanza. Allusion, it is usage or reference to any person or place. Out here, we call Percival out here. Personification is where you try to compare the feelings of a person to an animal or a thing. Moving on to stanza 6. Belinda giggled till she shook the house, and Blink said weak, which is giggling for a mouse. Ink and Mustard rudely asked his age, when Custard cried for a nice safe cage. So, Belinda, she didn't leave a chance. She started to laugh at him, giggle at him in a way a mouse does by making some sounds. And Custard did not like being mocked and made of this kind of a mock which was very rude. So he politely asked for a cage where he can go and rest. It is not that he was a coward, he didn't like their mocking. So if you see the rhyme scheme out here again, it is AABB, house mouse, rage cage. And you have Ornamentopia, which is usage of sound words to create a dramatic effect, like giggled and weak. Repetition again is Custard crying for a nice safe cage, which is being repeated again and again in stanza 4 and stanza 5 till stanza 6. Now let's move to the next stanza. Suddenly, they heard a nasty sound, and a Mustard growled, and they all looked around. Meouch, cried Ink, and ooh, cried Belinda, for there was a pirate climbing in the window. So if you see out here, again you have a poetic license, window. Window is nothing but window because the poet wanted a rhyming word for Belinda. So window is window made for the rhyme scheme or the rhyme sense for Belinda. So coming to the rhyming scheme again, it is AABB, sound, around, Belinda, window. You have consonants just like assonance was for vowel sound. Consonants is use of consonant sound, which is S out here. Suddenly, they heard a nasty sound. You can even take it as an alliteration and also a repetition. Again, you have Ornamentopia, which is usage of sound words where the mustard growled and meowed cried ink. As I already told you, the poetic license, window is written as winda to create a rhyme. Moving on to the next stanza. Pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. His beard was black, one leg was wood. It was clear that the pirate meant no good. We already know that pirates don't move in the city, so again out here he tries to bring a comic sense, making a pirate come into the city, into the little white house. A pirate had a pistol in his left and a pistol in his right, and we all know that a pirate doesn't have his right hand, but he has got a hook instead. He had a sharp sword in his teeth, a wooden leg, and a black beard. Looking at his all the way he looked, they were all trying to make the situation more worse. So again, the rhyme scheme is AABB. Alliteration you have B and H. Beard was black. He held his H and BB. There is an imagery out here, a vision which gives you the appearance of the pirate. It is called as imagery. Now moving to stanza 9. Belinda paled and she cried, "Help, help!" But Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. Ink trickled down to the bottom of the household, and little Mouse blinked strategically mousehold. After seeing the pirate, Belinda turned pale and she cried for help. But her pets also got frightened. Mustard ran away with a bark. Ink went down to the bottom of the household to hide herself, whereas the little mouse Blink took shelter in a mouse hole. So again, if you see out here, you have a poetic license, mousehold, just to rhyme with household. The rhyme scheme out here is again AABB, help, yelp, household, mousehold. Repetition, which is help, help, and poetic license, which is mousehold, to rhyme with household. If you see, we have a transferred epithet out here. Epithet is nothing but it is a describing word, mostly an adjective. It describes a noun. Out here, a noun describes a noun by transferring the qualities, just like a personification. Moving on to stanza 10. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an Indian dragon, clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. With a clatter and a clunk and a jangling squirm, he went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine. All the pets who always boasted of their bravery all ran away after seeing the pirate. But it was Custard who jumped up to fight against the pirate. With a clatter and a clank and a jangling squirm, Custard snorted like an engine and clashed his tail powerfully. He attacked the pirate as a robin bird attacks a worm. So we have the same rhyme scheme, AABB. Simile, sound of dragon, is compared with sound of engine. Clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. Dragon's attack on pirate is compared to robin bird, like a robin at a worm. You have Ornamentopia again, usage of sound words to create dramatic effect, clatter, clank, jangling. We have an imagery, a vision, imagination of vision, which you get as soon as you read these lines. The attack by the dragon is expressed. Stanza 11. The pirate gaped at Belinda's dragon and gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. He fired 2 bullets, but they didn't hit, and Custard gobbled him every bit. So out here, we see that seeing the power of Custard, the pirate looked at him with surprise. The pirate gulped some kind of liquor from his large pocket and fired 2 bullets aiming Custard. But the pirate failed to hit the dragon. And finally, the Custard swallowed the pirate fully. So in these lines again you find the rhyme scheme AABB, dragon, flagon, hit and bit. We have alliteration, gulp some grog, G. Imagery, they have shown the reaction and actions made by the pirate on seeing the dragon. So imagery, which gives you a vision immediately when you read some lines, you get those vision in front of your eyes. So that is what is imagery. Now, moving on to the next stanza. Belinda embraced him, Mustard licked him. No one mourned for his pirate victim. Ink and blink in glee did guide it around the dragon that ate the pirate. So after seeing Custard's bravery, Belinda ran to hug him. Other pets also came and showed some affection towards him, like Mustard licked him. And to see, no one was worried about the dead pirate. Instead, Ink and Blink even danced in joy around the dragon. So it is to show that they were all happy that the pirate was eaten away. So out here the rhyme scheme again is AABB, him, victim, guided and pirate. Alliteration is glee, guided, the sound of G. Assonance, use of vowel sound O, which comes in no one mourned for. Use of vowel sound I in ink and blink, in glee did. Use of vowel sound A again, that ate the pirate. Now moving on to the next stanza. But presently up spoke little dog Mustard, I'd have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered. And up spoke Ink and up spoke Blink, we'd have been 3 times as brave, we think. And Custard said, I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. So if you see in these lines, after celebrating the death of the pirate, the little dog Mustard said that if he had not been puzzled and shocked, he would have been doubly brave. He would have been more brave than the Custard. On hearing this, even Ink and Blink also said that they would have been thrice as brave. So they were actually trying to show that they are not covered and it is Custard who is covered. Custard agreed that everybody was braver than him. If you find here, you see only the rhyme scheme in these lines, A, B, B. Mustard flustered, Blink Ink, agree me. Now moving on to the last stanza of this particular poem. Belinda still lives in her little white house with her little black kitten and her little grey mouse and her little yellow dog and her little red wagon and her realio trulio little pet dragon. Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of beers, and Ink and Blink chase lions down the stairs. Mustard is as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard keeps crying for a nice safe cage. Here, the poet says that Belinda still lives in her little white house with the same pets, which is little black kitten, little grey mouse, little yellow dog, little red wagon, and little pet dragon. The poet says that Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of bears. Ink and Blink chase lions down the stairs. Mustard is again brave like an angry tiger, and Custard always cries for a safe cage. So out here, if you see, the whole paragraph, the whole stanza has been repeated. So it comes under repetition. So let's revise all the literary devices in the poem once again. It is rhyme scheme, oxymoron, simile, metaphor, personification, onomatopia, compound words, transferred epithet. Each of the 14 stanzas in this poem follows the same simple rhyme scheme, AABB. This is to say, each stanza is actually composed a pair of rhymed couplets. In this poem, the poet uses the device of oxymoron when he writes the phrase pet dragon. We all know that dragons are dangerous creatures, and therefore we find it hard to believe that they can be domesticated and kept as pets. Metaphor. This poetic device is used when a covert comparison is made between two different things or ideas. In this poem, the poet uses the device of metaphor in the third line of the third stanza when he compares the dragon's nose with a chimney. And simile, as and like, used wherever in the poem, like the third line of the second stanza, third line of the third stanza, fourth stanza, you find, and also in the 10th stanza where the comparison is keep on repeating using like and as, so like a fireplace and that of irons in a dungeon. So personification is a poetic device used to bestow human qualities on something that is not human. In this poem, the poet uses this device with respect to Belinda's kitten, mouse and dog. In the second line of the 5th stanza, he gives them all the human ability to speak. Next we have Ornamentopia, the poetic device used when a word is used to describe a sound. In this poem, the poet uses the device in the second line of the 6th stanza where he uses the word weak to describe the sound a mouse makes while giggling. Compound words are words which are used in the third line of the 7th stanza, meow and ouch, to create the word meowch. Transferred epithet. This poetic device is used when an emotion is attributed to a non-living thing after being displaced from a person, most often the poet himself or herself. In this poem, the poet, in the second line of the 9th stanza, he writes the phrase terrified yelp. It is not the yelping sound that is terrified, for it is not a living thing, but that the dog is terrified by the pirate and yelps in reaction. Hope it's easy for you to learn. Goodbye.